videos,
Okay.
that recording. Okay? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sharing my screen again now. Yeah, so I was telling about why to use RAML. We can even create the API without RAML, but there is a limitation. Suppose we want some sets of validation to be happening at the backend when we would be running our API. So we can't do that directly in our API. As I was giving an example, suppose we are dealing with a data set of a JSON structure, okay, and as you guys would be knowing, are you guys familiar with JSON structure, how it looks like?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so as you guys know that, yeah, JSON structure is basically a key value pair, okay, inside an object structure or a array of object structure. So, suppose there is a key value pair, and that key we want to be present every time in our data set. Suppose an end user would be hitting our URL or our API. We want that end user to pass that particular key value pair. It should be like, it is a must to be passed, okay. So this kind of validations we can't do directly in our API. For that purpose we require this RAML structure for validating our API. That is why we go for this RAML structuring. Okay, any questions?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, so how to create RAML? So yesterday I told you guys, we would be doing it on any point platform. Okay. So there is this icon in the left corner, this three lines. We would be clicking on this. Then after that, our RAML would be created inside Design Center. Okay. So I would be clicking on this Design Center. Then I would be clicking on this create icon. Okay. Then as it would be a new API specification, if I'd be clicking on this, then this box come into picture, what should be the name of your project, or what should be the name of your API, your specification you want to give. It could be anything, like in our case, suppose we give something like demo 1. Okay. And you would be seeing one option like this RAML 1.0. What is this RAML 1.0, RAML 0.8? So basically, RAML is written in these are the versions of RAML in which we write our code. Okay, so the latest version is RAML 1.0. Earlier we used to have 0.8 in the earlier version, so it is the upgrade. Okay, so now we used to have it on RAML 1.0. Okay. And this is basically for what could you say, like a visual representation kind of guide me through it, so we don't need to select this option. Just have the default options, give your project name, then just click on create API. Okay. So now you would be seeing structure came into picture. So there are three separations you would be seeing. One is this file section, one is this this section is called as canvas, where we would be writing our RAML. Okay. And the third section is called as documentation. Once your RAML would be completed, the documentation part which you would be writing inside your RAML, the endpoints which you would be exposing inside your RAML, all would be visible here in the documentation section. Okay. So after creating your RAML, when you want to just check it out whether the RAML you have created is working fine or not, so it would be triggered from this section. All your endpoint would be visible in this documentation section. In the file section, so all the files, all the folders which you create, that would be corresponding to your RAML. Okay. Suppose defining data types, defining some example files, defining some traits. Okay, let me tell you about traits. What are traits? So traits are basically all those reusable resources that would be common for your each and every endpoint. which you are exposing inside your API, inside your RAML. Okay, so those are called as traits. So all those things would be defined here in this section files. It would be visible in this section. Okay, your security scheme. Suppose in your API specification you have mentioned some security scheme such as client ID enforcement. You want that when someone would be hitting your application, your API, they should be authenticating themselves. Okay, so how they would be authenticating? You want it through client ID enforcement, some username and pass, or some basic authentication, some username and password. Okay, so all those things are mentioned here in this file section. Okay, any question?
Nope.
No.
Okay. Okay, so let me walk you through an example of a RAML. Okay, so I've created a sample RAML. Like this RAML is basically for integration of a data set, okay, to Salesforce. Okay, like a product related data set to Salesforce. And we are performing some CRUD operation onto that. CRUD operation means get, put, like methods. Are you guys aware of what are the different kinds of methods that we basically use in APIs?
Yes.
What about you guys, Sanjay, Tushar?
Yeah, I'm aware.
Basically,
Sorry.
get, put, post.
Okay, you guys are aware of, no? Yeah. So get, put, post, delete. Okay. So we would be doing this stuff. Get means for retrieving some set of data. Put means for modifying some data by passing the ID of that Salesforce ID of that particular data set that is already present in Salesforce. Then post is for posting a new or adding a new data set into Salesforce. Delete is for deleting a record from Salesforce. So we would be performing these operations through this particular API specification or RAML. Okay, so how to do that? Just a second now. Yes. See, so yeah, this is my root RAML. Okay, so as I have already told you guys, so uh, our current RAML version, which we use for writing the RAML, is 1.0. So it comes by default, as you have seen here. When I have created a RAML, it came by default RAML 1.0. Then another tag, that is title. Title is basically used for defining your API, as what would be the name of your API. Okay, so in our case, I've given it as the product pricing SFDC experience API, because I was using like API led approach. So in yesterday's class, as I have already told you, we would be having three sets of APIs. One is experience, another is process, and third one is system. So this experience API would be the one that would be exposed to the end users, to you. Okay, so title I've given the name as products pricing. Actually, we give that title name as something that is related to what that API is actually doing. So it is giving us information about product pricing. And afterwards, we give the name of the target system where we are integrating it with. So it is Salesforce. That is why I have given it the name as SFDC and then experience API. Version, this thing basically we give for documentation. Suppose someone who is reading this API, who don't have that much knowledge of APIs and all, so he or she could read it out what exactly we are having inside our API, what we are doing. So that's why we do this documentation. It is the best practice, you could say, that MuleSoft suggests, to have some set of documentation inside your RAML. Okay, so description is, what is this API? This is Salesforce eAPI. Documentation, inside documentation, there is title, product pricing, SFDC experience API, content. What exactly is this API doing? So this API performs CRUD operation, create, get, update, and delete. So sorry, this is not questioning this on Salesforce object. Yeah. Media type. So what is this media type? Media type is like onto which kind of data set we would be performing the operations onto. Okay, so in our case it was JSON data type. Oh, JSON data structure. Okay, so for that we would be giving the name as application slash JSON. If it would have been a CSV, so it could be application slash CSV. If it could be a plain text, application slash plain text. Okay, so in this way, or for XML, application slash XML. So in this way we used to give the media type, define the media type. Protocols, which protocol we would be using. So in my case I was using HTTP, so I have given the name as HTTP. It could be HTTPS as well, so we could define HTTPS as well. Okay, then after that I'm what are these user sections? Okay, so let me walk you through this section, file section, what how we create files. Okay, so firstly
Like,
you'd be yeah, yeah.
so in the protocols, uh, can we give like multiple protocols or just
Yeah,
single?
yeah, 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 we could give HTTP and then HTTPS we could give.
Okay.
So it would be supporting both in that case.
Okay.
Actually, I want to add something over here. So, if you see, these are all the best practices. We can make our RAML without these as well. Like these are not needed, but according to, like, if you are transferring your RAML to someone else, or you are working on a team and you are specially working on the RAML, so these things are the very best practices to do and mention, so that anyone can else easy to understand what you are basically doing. Secondly, like if you see the drop down, that arrow downwards, right? Nikhil, can you show that arrow? Yeah, this arrow. So with the help of this arrow, you are able to get the suggestions of every, like, which field you want to put up, which operation you want to put up downwards. Once you click enter, you will get to know the suggestions over here. Secondly, what all the things you are going to mention in the ramble, that only will going to be accepted. Like you mentioned, media type application JSON, so that means only JSON type of data is going to be acceptable. If we are passing sometimes the XML, sometimes the CSV, that will not going to be accepted. That at that time it will give you the error, media type not matching, or media type not accepted, kind of that. So if you are not sure about that, like which type of data going to be come up, you can define the multiple as well in a similar manner. Okay. Yeah.
Hmm. So in like I was telling about the file section. So like how to create add, as you would be seeing there are multiple folders visible to you. Examples folder. So this examples folder is basically where suppose we are using this post method and put method. So for that we need to pass some request body, that how our request structure should be looking like. Okay, and how the response should be looking like. Okay, so for that we need to pass a kind of a demo example file kind of thing. Okay, so for that we create a folder named as example. So how to do that? So there's a plus icon visible to you here. When you would be clicking on this plus icon, so a new folder option comes into picture. So when you would be clicking on this, so you can give the name as examples, then click on create, then this folder would be created. Then under this folder, how to create the files. Okay, so as you would be seeing, there are multiple files: delete product response, get product response, post product request, post product response, something like this. So how to do that? So you would be seeing these three dots icons under this folder section. Okay, so you need to click onto this, then a second now. Sorry, you need to click onto this plus icon on this examples, and then click on this new file. Okay, when you would be clicking on this new file structure, then you need to have these things as default, this API format and file type, whatever it is. Just give the file name. Okay, and with the particular extension type, as it is a, if it is a JSON structure, then give it the name as .json. Okay, if it is the XML structure, then give it the name as .xml. Okay, are you good?
Yes, yeah.
What is file type? Like
Which one? File type is basically what type of files you are creating. Like, is it a specification file? Is it a trait file? Is it a resource type library? Anything. I'd be telling you what are those. So for example files, we would be using specification only. Okay.
Okay. Example files means I didn't get you. Like what example?
Examples means, suppose you are having this methods, na, get, put,
Mm-hmm.
post, delete. Okay. So for that, this raml structure is just a kind of a demo thing which you are creating. Okay, it's not a exact request response structure that when you would be hitting it, you would be getting it right away. When you would be importing it in the actual code, then you would be able to utilize that. Okay. So for when you want to check it out while creating it, so for that, as in the raml we are defining the structure how our api should be looking like. So for get method, as we know, get method is we are retrieving some data set from some system. Okay. So in the while defining the structure, we need to give an example, like when we would be hitting the get method. Okay, so how our response would be looking like. Okay. So that that is an example of that get response. Okay, so that is the file we would be creating for get method. Okay, so we would be giving, like, let me show you. I've created a this file structure that, yeah, when I would be hitting my api with get method, so I would be getting a response something like this. Okay, sample response, you could say.
You mean output, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Response means output, and request means like when you are hitting your application or your particular method. So what are the mandatory fields you need to pass to hit that application?
Okay.
Okay, so that is the request.
Okay.
Yeah. So
But for, sorry, Nikhil, see, for a get, is it necessary that we
no,
define a
no.
schema? It's not necessary, correct?
Yeah, yeah. For get, we don't need to pass it. It is not a mandatory thing to pass
Yes.
a request body. For
Okay.
post, put, or delete, we would be requiring request.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that is why, answering your question, Sanjay or Tushar, whoever was asking. So file type we give as specification for examples. Okay. Afterwards, let me show you some example. As we know that for get, as Kalyan told, we don't require a request body. We would be just passing a response that, hey, our response should be looking something like this. So that's why I've created this file structure only. That, yeah, when someone would be hitting my application, my API with get method, he or she would be getting this kind of response. For delete, we would be requiring both request and response. As I've already told, we would be deleting some record set that is already present in our Salesforce or in our any of the target system. As in our case, it is Salesforce, so some record would be already present in the Salesforce. So we just want to delete it out. So for deleting it in the request body, request, I think example has been deleted. Uh, Okay, so we could have created a request something like passing only the ID. Okay, that, yeah, hey, this is the ID. Okay, of that particular record which we want to delete. So it could be, the structure could be something like a JSON object. Okay, inside that only the ID field would be there with a corresponding value. Okay, so that could be the request body, and corresponding to that request, our response would be something like this. That, yeah, when we would be deleting our record, so Salesforce gives us response something like this. Okay, like, hey, this was the ID of that record, type was this, error, inside the error object, it gives us the response message, record deleted successfully, status code is this, and it gives us a flag kind of thing that is called as this successful key. Okay, when our API would be running fine and our operation would be running fine. Okay, so it would be giving this flag value as true. Otherwise, it would give us a flag value as false. Okay. Salesforce directly don't give you an error. It will not error out. This successful flag value would tell you whether your operation is running fine or not. If it is running fine, then it would be giving you the value as true. If it won't be running fine, it would be giving the value as false.
So
Okay.
always we need to follow this template, or we can do more operations on the delete response.
More operations means?
Means like it is like a query, right? We're passing to the target system and deleting some records based on the ID.
For Salesforce, we don't need to. For database, whatever you are saying, we need to write a query. It is required. Okay.
So
For actually, there are some set of connectors in Salesforce. Okay, in MuleSoft. So there is a delete connector. Inside that connector, now when you would be configuring, you just need to pass the ID of that particular record.
so this is different compared to what we do in the SQL queries. This is like a different operation thing, right? Delete response.
Yeah. It is basically for Salesforce. It is not related to database.
Okay. Salesforce means like what exactly we are going to delete? Like, is that a data?
Are you are you aware of Salesforce? What exactly is Salesforce?
Salesforce, it's a middleware tool, right?
CRM tool, you could say. Okay, so basically that is used for storing data sets, different kinds of data sets. So like CRUD operations, when we would be performing CRUD operations on Salesforce, like when we would be performing Git operations, means some set of data is present in Salesforce. We want to retrieve it out. Okay. Like suppose we want for get operation, we would be passing query. Okay, like hey, select star from particular like there are different sets of objects in Salesforce, account object, contact object. Okay, so suppose we would be passing for retrieving data set. For get method, we would be passing a query, select star from account.
Correct.
Okay, so for get method, we would be doing that way. For post, we would be passing something, some request like this. Hey, this is our request body as some key value pair name, blah 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 blah. This. Okay. Then we would be passing the that object name into which we want to create that record into. Okay. We
We
don't
don't
need to
need,
pass
yeah, we don't
that
need
query.
to store a new value or
Yeah,
for
yeah,
storing.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. When we want to store a new set of record in Salesforce, so we would be using post method for that. Okay. For delete, as I've already told, we just need to pass the ID of Salesforce ID of that particular record which we want to delete. Okay. Inside the connector, Salesforce connector. Okay. For put as you already aware of, it is for updation or modification. Okay, of some record that is already present. So for put, we would be requiring the ID of Salesforce ID of that particular record along with those key value pair which we want to update their values. Okay. Like query, we would be writing only for fetching the record
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Salesforce.
So it is kind of a process is same, but like what we do in the SQL, right? The same, but
Hmm.
kind of approach is different, right? Here we are doing.
Yes.
Okay.
Procedure is same in cell like DB also we perform CRUD operations,
Mhm.
but for everything we write queries. Okay.
Yeah.
In Salesforce for get operation only we write query.
Okay.
Nikhil, just from my understanding, so I know I might be deviating a little, but see, like all these Salesforce and all you're saying, like they have their own connectors, correct? So we basically don't have to write anything custom by ourselves. So those connectors, like how do you like? Is it like a drag and drop kind of functionality? Okay,
Yes.
that's be done in the studio, is it?
Yes. So
Okay,
actually for those connectors in the backend, JavaScripts are written for that.
correct.
Okay.
Yes. And what we are doing now, this is basically custom, correct? So this is like in case we don't have standard connectors, is this when we go with this approach of writing our own RAMLs?
No, not for that. RAML we basically use for validating our data set, not
Okay.
for connectors. Okay. Like I would be telling you later on when I would be going through these data structures and all. No? Okay. So I would be telling you why we are doing that.
Okay, and this gets again integrated with what we are doing in the visual, I mean the studio, or this would be like something stand alone by itself.
No. It would be utilized in that.
Okay,
We would be importing it out in that API when we would be creating on the Anypoint Studio.
okay, got it. Yeah.
And based on this RAML, we would be designing our API.
Okay, got it, Nikhil. Yeah.
Yeah. Any more questions? Okay. Yeah. So, like as I've already told, for get we won't be passing any request body. We would be passing just a response that hey, our response would be looking like this when we would be calling our get method For delete, as I've already told, request and response. Then for post, we would be passing both request and response body would be required, that hey, our data set would be looking something like this. Okay, and when we would be passing this data set and via this post method, response should be when the response should be coming, it should be looking something like this. Okay, so for this we have created both request and response. Same for put. The only difference between put and post would be post won't be requiring any ID. Okay, but for put, as we are modifying a record, would be modifying means that record is already present in that particular system. So for modifying that record, we would be requiring some as you could say in terms of DB, a primary key, like a unique value. Unique value is nothing but the ID of that record. Okay, so we would be requiring in the request body that particular ID. uh, Pankudi, have you deleted that?
I'm sorry, what?
In the put request,
Yeah.
ID is not present.
Yeah, maybe by chance.
Yeah. So our request for put method would be looking something like this. Hey, this is the ID, Salesforce ID of that particular record, and corresponding to that these are the key value pair which we want to update the values of. Okay. So our put request would be looking something like this, and response to that put request would be looking something like this. Okay. So this was about examples folder. Then we would be coming to suppose we are using this key value pairs. Let me give request, yeah, like name, product code, description, product price, currency code. Then our how our RAML would know that what type of data corresponding to this key should be validated. Okay, so we must need to pass that data type corresponding to it, that hey, for this name key, what should be the type of that value? Should it be a string, should it be a number, or what? Okay, so for that, there is we create a library folder. Okay, so library would be having all the data types related stuffs of that particular methods. Okay, so in the same way, we would be clicking on this plus icon, creating this folder called as library. Okay, then after that, how to create file inside that same approach, we would be clicking on this plus icon, then this new file. And yeah, answering your question, Sanjay, maybe you have asked. So in this section, for this file type, we would be choosing library. Okay, when we are creating some file inside this library folder, so we would be choosing the file type as library.
Okay.
Got it? And we would be giving the name as particular method dot raml. Okay, then let me show you some example. Give me a minute, huh? Yeah. So corresponding to our methods, I have created these data types. For that, I've given name as delete products.raml for delete method, for get method get products.raml, for post product.raml, and for put products.raml. So once we would be creating these files, so this structure would be coming into picture, like up to this line number one. Then from line number two, we need to write. So first thing would be type. Okay, so what is the type of this? So as we are creating it for delete, so I have given the name as delete product response. Okay, so and under that, what would be the type of the data set? Okay, that would be coming. So our type is array. Okay, for delete, as I have already shown you example. Okay, as it is an array of objects, so we would be giving defining the type of that particular method response as type as array, because Salesforce gives you a response in the form of an array of object. Okay, so that is why I have defined the type as array. Description I have given update product response data type. And And when we as we would be defining the data type of all the keys that would be used inside this delete product operation, so we would be passing it inside the item section. So that is why I have named it as items in line number 6. And inside items we write properties. Okay, so actually, what would happen now when you would be writing? So suppose you have written item. So after that, some suggestion would be coming. What Pankudi was telling. So you just need to select it out from this dialog box. Okay. Sometimes it would come. Sometimes maybe it won't be. So you need to it totally depends on the practice you do. When you would be doing it, na, you would get to know what to exactly write after this. Okay. Any question till here?
Nothing from me.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, so in items, we have defined that properties, and inside properties for delete operation, we required only ID for as a request body. So inside ID, so ID would be of what type? So ID would be of type string. So that is why I have named it as ID as string, type as string. Okay. And inside errors, so I have already created error codes for all these endpoints, so that is why I have defined inside here also. So when you would be seeing the response of Salesforce, I've already shown you. So it comes something like this: ID and this errors. Errors is the key, like a root element you could say, and inside that there is an array of object having these two key value pair, message and status code. Okay, so that is why I've defined it as uh, type as array. Okay, errors type as array, and inside that items properties, that is having two key value pair, message and status code. So whatever key value pair you are using inside your response section, you just need to pass the data type for that inside this data type file which you are creating. Got it? So corresponding to the example which I have written for the response of this delete, as ID is of string type, you would be seeing type is of string, errors is of array type. Okay, and inside that this message and status code is also of type string. Then this successful keyword is of type boolean. Okay, so in the same way, I have defined it here in the data type file of that particular delete method. Got it?
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Same way, I have done it for get. Okay. So you would be seeing some extra things here, like what is this question mark? What does it stands for? So suppose in your response body, some fields are not mandatory. Okay, some fields are optional. So how to define that? Okay, so for defining it, there is two method. There is two way of defining it. Either we do it through this question mark. This question mark indicate that this particular field is optional. Okay, if you pass it, all good. If you don't pass it, it won't impact your proper functioning of your API. Okay, so one way of doing this is by using it this question mark symbol. Another way of doing it is this way. When you define required as false, so it would be considered as an optional field. Okay. Another thing which you would be seeing would be this max length. What is this max length 12? This max length 12, as the name suggests, it defines that this when you are using this external ID field, the maximum number of character that you could pass for the value of this external ID field could be 12. You can't pass beyond this value. This is the threshold value. Up to 12 characters, you could have the value of this external ID. So these are the some sets of validation you are doing here. So that is what I was talking about. This kind of thing you can't do in that API where you haven't defined the RAML. Got it? These are the validations you are doing here on the field level. Okay. Third thing which you would be seeing is this operator, this line, straight line. What is this? So this is or. Okay, in our term we use now this or that something. So that for doing some conditional thing, we use this pipe operator. Okay, here. Then what is this nil? Nil means this particular name field could be nullable, means you could pass null value to it. Okay. So when we want to define all those things, we would be doing this way. Suppose we want to define that, hey, in our response body or in our request body, we want this name field to be optional. So we would be passing it as name question mark. Then we want that, hey, we want to have some max length for this field. So we would be passing this as this max length as some whatever you want to have. Okay. Then we want, hey, this name value should be string, and it could also have a null values accepting. Okay, so we would be doing this way, passing this pipe operator, then writing nil. Okay, all good.
Sorry, can you just repeat the question mark piece once again, Nikhil?
Question mark is basically, Kalyan, for optional. Okay, if you want to make any field optional.
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
suppose you want to hit an a method, and inside that a field you want to, like, it is not of a required type, you must need to pass it. Okay, so for making it optional, we do it this way, question mark, or the second way of doing it as we could write it as required false.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.